My fiancé fell for a student I was sponsoring. To show his resolve, he didn't care about family opposition, and even came to my house to call off the engagement. My dad was furious, my mom almost passed out. In no time, I became a laughingstock within my circle. No one knew, though, that we had a family meeting that night. Everyone calmly analyzed the situation point by point. Dad sipped his tea and said, "Distance makes the heart grow fonder. Go abroad for a few years, take a step back to move forward." Mom nodded with a calm expression. "Change your image. She's the innocent one. You be the confident heartbreaker." I smiled. Then I should start with a bout of depression. When I returned, my friends threw me a welcome back party. After a few rounds of drinks, laughter filled the room. Someone pushed the door open, and suddenly the atmosphere froze. It was my ex-fiancé and his girlfriend. I turned to look, locking eyes with a familiar cold gaze. Nolan's stare lingered on me a bit too long, making Lily behind him uneasy. Everyone exchanged glances, observing my reaction carefully. I snapped out of it and calmly invited them in. "Come in, have a seat." As if the quarrel from 3 years ago never happened. Nolan's expression was complicated for a moment, as if he struggled to speak. But in the end, he just responded quietly. Lily sat next to him, trying hard to maintain a polite smile. But she couldn't hide her stiffness. People looked at her with undisguised ridicule. I had brought her out of poverty to school, and she stole my fiancé. Who can respect such betrayal? Over the years, my family's business boomed, overshadowing Nolan's. Those eager to please me felt it wasn't just due consideration, but also a strategic interest. Drinks in hand, they unconsciously isolated Lily, treating her like she was invisible. She looked to Nolan for help, but he remained silent, contrary to his usual self. A scrutinizing gaze occasionally fell on me. Even the dim lighting couldn't hide Lily's tension. Once satisfied with her discomfort, I slowly lifted my glass to break the tension. "You're late, self-penalty of 3 drinks, no objections?" I chuckled. "No cheating, that's the rule." As I spoke, the crowd quickly chimed in, variously but swiftly. "Yeah, it's Clara's welcome back. Don't be buzzkills." Nolan wasn't fazed. He downed 3 drinks without a word, turning the glass upside down, leaving not a drop. It felt like he was apologizing for what happened 3 years ago. I smiled slightly, turning to Lily. She lifted her glass, twitching at the corner of her mouth, but couldn't meet my eyes. When I tried to clink glasses, she flinched like avoiding the plague, dropping her glass on the floor. The others couldn't take it anymore. "Nolan, what's up with your girl? Clara's being so gracious, yet she pulls a face? What's she here for, to bring us down?" Nolan glanced at her, frowned in displeasure but still defended her. "Lily didn't mean it. Let it go." Lily hung her head, apologizing softly with glistening eyes, seeming wronged. Friends not tied to Nolan business-wise began to lose it. Damn my temper. I stopped them with a pleasant smile. "We're all friends. Let's not blow a small thing out of proportion. It's ancient history, let's not bring it up." I faced Nolan and Lily, raised my glass and drank, eyes reflecting reassurance. Nolan's demeanor relaxed, a hint of a smile in his eyes. The group realized it was time for bygones to be bygones, and things heated up again. Later, I stepped onto the terrace to sober up a bit. Nolan's slightly raspy voice came from behind me. "How have you been these 3 years?" The wind gently toyed with my hair, making it feel like a reunion after a lifetime. I turned back, catching the awe and complexity flitting through Nolan's eyes. "With all that drinking, how's your stomach holding up?" I sidestepped his question, focusing on his health. He subconsciously clutched his stomach, briefly lost in thought. He always had stomach issues, and was picky about food. I had once took a year to figure out his taste, curated a diet just for him, nagged him to eat, always had medicine and snacks ready for emergencies. Yet I lost to the girl willing to eat street food with him. He smoothed over his expressions, looking at me with a complex face. "Aren't you mad at me?" I shook my head. "It's all in the past. We didn't have any unsolvable conflicts. Besides, isn't it the saying, business doesn't override friendship, or something like that?" Nolan chuckled, the tension easing between us. "You've grown quite magnanimous." I laughed too. "We aren't cut out to be lovers. Doesn't mean we're bad as friends, right?" Truth is, after Nolan and I broke off, our families almost turned hostile. The past 3 years were marked by fierce competition. Our alliance crumbled to become business rivals. Everyone knew my parents cherished me and marveled at our family's rise. Power players advised their juniors to befriend me if possible, and if not, at least not to cross me. Back home, new friends from all over emerged, extending countless invitations. One more or less, Nolan included, won't matter. And frankly, there's no point for our families to keep fighting like this. Nolan being at my welcome party seemed like an olive branch from his family to patch things up. Having come across in my words, Nolan eased, relaxing beside me against the railing. We casually chatted about changes and stories from the last 3 years. The balance of power, making it comfortable and relaxing. In my peripheral vision, a white dress passed by around the corner. I smiled, intrigued. The coming times certainly promised to be interesting. After that day, Nolan started contacting me a lot more. He asked for the meal plan we had discussed before, and I shared it all with him. I even gave him detailed tips, reminding him to take care of himself. Nolan pretended it was a hassle, but the warmth in his voice was undeniable. Once back home, I didn't rush back to work. Instead, I took this precious downtime to revisit old places. My social media feed was suddenly filled with old friends, old places, and old memories. Of course, Nolan and I have known each other since we were teenagers. How many of those memories involved him? Too many to count. I sometimes thought he was glued to my social media, always being the first to like and comment. The school principal really did go bald, huh? Is this the same ginger cat we used to feed back then? It still hasn't graduated. I remember us tying red strings on this ancient tree and making wishes. You never did show me yours. I responded to some of his comments and messages, the harmless ones at least. The ones that tiptoed on boundaries, I just laughed off. Then there was this celebrity's new girlfriend bashing classic songs during a live stream. She even dissed one of my favorites as sleazy. That night, I posted the song on my feed. Minutes later, Nolan called, his annoyance apparent. He wasn't into celebrities, but he didn't miss a concert by this singer. That said a lot about how much he liked the song. I quietly listened to him rant, occasionally chiming in to agree or comfort. We ended up talking for over an hour, until Lily's voice came from his end. Nolan, still not done with work? Nolan paused but kept the call going, his tone a bit irked. What are you doing in here? Lily's pitch went up a notch, with a hint of accusation. You're on the phone with her again, aren't you? Hearing that, I hung up. It was their domestic issue, and I had no place getting involved. I hummed to myself softly, eyes on the clock on the wall. My fingers idly tapped on the desk. 3 minutes later, Nolan called back. His voice carried a hint of fatigue. Sorry, Clara, you got caught up in this. I whispered back, it's okay. I get it. Lily's sensitive. Just spend more time with her. Make her feel secure. After a pause, I added, our relationship is a bit tricky anyway. It's normal she doesn't like me. Maybe we should keep some distance. Nolan was silent for a few seconds, but I caught a well-concealed impatience. I'm giving her all the security she needs. She's never satisfied. After hanging up, I raised an eyebrow. These years I spent abroad, but I was quite aware of things back home. After our engagement was off, Nolan went on a hunger strike for days, until his family accepted Lily. And Lily stood at his villa's gate daily, eyes swollen from crying, just hoping to see Nolan. A rich kid rebelling for love and a tenacious girl, a mutual pursuit. Nolan's parents finally relented, and the two of them broke all barriers to be together. Their story was like a melodrama come to life, a hot topic within our circles. People would pretend to wipe their eyes when recounting it. Such a touching love story, they'd say. Ladies, check if your fiancé has a true love out there, and make way for them. But reality kicks in once the show's over. The two families' partnership fell apart, and Nolan's parents couldn't blame him. So someone had to bear their scorn, right? They scrutinized Lily under a harsh lens, critical at every turn. If she wanted to marry up, she needed to learn the rules, be a homemaker. Work. Not allowed. Wouldn't want to disgrace us for a paycheck, would you? Parties. Not a chance. Who'd want to see the home wrecker elevate in status? Fresh out of college, Lily hadn't yet proved herself worthy of Nolan in her career. She was forced to forsake her career for love. Lucky for her, Nolan promised eternal love. Being the woman behind him was worth more. Her future was trivial compared to being a wife. She gripped Nolan tight. Anytime a woman showed up in his life, she'd be upset. Once or twice was cute. Too often became annoying. Love fueled by hormones can't beat the age-old human heart. I sighed and looked at Linda, one of the people I sponsored who's now my assistant. Do you get why she does that? Linda had a cold look, her disdain surfacing at my question. I'll never understand. Having success within reach. Why gamble it all on a man's fleeting love? I pondered. Has it been a while since Lily saw her family? Linda nodded. I'll handle it. After that call, it felt like the growing closeness between Nolan and me returned to square one. I rarely answered his messages or calls now. I deliberately avoided his gatherings too. That gap seemed to throw Nolan off balance. He approached Linda, trying to meet me. Linda sighed. You really don't know? Everyone's trash-talking the boss online. Terrible rumors flying everywhere. Her depression flared up again. Her mother sent her to a care facility. Nolan froze, his voice dry and somewhat forced. Depression? Linda realized her slip-up, a hesitant look crossing her face. Sorry, I can't say more. Nolan pleaded with Linda to take him to my place. He hadn't dared return since the engagement broke off 3 years ago. And my parents wouldn't let him in. On the drive, through the rearview mirror, Linda saw him searching the web for news. His brow furrowed deeper, his expression grew more strained. An account on a certain platform had posted my information. They accused me of being the homewrecker between Nolan and Lily. After getting back home, she started clinging to Nolan under the guise of friendship with no sense of boundaries. She even snapped photos of me and Nolan talking on the terrace at a welcome-back party. The angle made it look really intimate. The internet blew up with criticism and harsh comments. Many friends stood up for me, knowing well who was behind it. They asked if I wanted to clear things up or fight back. I just shrugged and gave a sad smile, saying forget it. People know what's right at heart. I don't want to pursue it. In all of this, I'm the one who lost a fiancé, and still got accused of things I didn't do. Even Mother Teresa would feel ashamed by my non-retaliation. People joked, sure, but I clearly held the moral high ground. The higher the flames of public opinion burned, the better it was for me and my family. I worried the flames might not burn high enough, and even stoke the fire a little more myself. It's time to make the next move. When Nolan came to my house, my mom didn't look happy, and asked him to leave. My daughter's misfortune started with you. Get out. He kept apologizing, his eyes reddened, and just wanted to see me. Auntie, is Clara depressed because of me? Please let me see her. Otherwise I can't be at ease, he pleaded. A cold spark flickered in my mom's eyes, but she sighed and relented. Fine, children are a burden. Go see her. After she gave the address of the rehab center, Nolan hurried off. My mom and Linda exchanged a glance, and Linda gave a barely noticeable nod and followed him out. On the road, Linda elaborately described how severe my depression was abroad, like a soulless puppet, with several attempts to harm myself only prevented at the last moment. Nolan turned to look out the window, his reflection showing teary eyes. When he found me, I was just sitting on the bed in a blue and white striped patient gown, staring blankly at the birds outside. Sunlight danced on my face, giving off a kind of broken beauty. Nolan's hand clenched slightly at his side. He cautiously called out, Clara? I tensed up instantly, surprised and panicked. What are you doing here? Nolan looked a bit helpless. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? I laughed it off. It's not a big deal. My mom's just making a mountain out of a molehill. Nolan lowered his gaze, seeming unwilling to meet my eyes. Did I cause your depression? I cut him off. I'm bored. They took my phone. My mom even got Linda to watch me. Maybe you could take me out? For once, I showed a pleading, coquettish demeanor. Nolan was almost rooted to the spot, his throat bobbing. I waved in front of his eyes, frowning in impatience. Well, can you or not? He coughed lightly, a blush creeping onto his handsome face. His once mature and stern demeanor softened, like a bashful teenager. Clara, you need rest for your health. I turned my head away, not speaking. Nolan chuckled, found an excuse to divert Linda. and I seized the chance to slip away. To keep Linda from following, Nolan drove me to a small street market tucked deep in an alley. My eyes lit up. "Nolan, you surprised me. How did you find a place like this?" He gave a slight avoiding glance. "Happened to pass by. I didn't push it." I knew even without asking this was where he and Lily had bonded. A place filled with sweet memories just for them. Now it looks like their relationship isn't all that unbreakable after all. I rarely came to places like this, so everything seemed new. I wanted the crispy golden potatoes one moment, and craved the stinky tofu across the street the next. Soon enough, Nolan was carrying several bags of snacks, and I was happily munching on a candied hawthorn stick, making faces at its sourness. Nolan laughed, his face relaxing anew. "You never liked these, remember? Careful, you might get a stomachache." I rolled my eyes. Who said I didn't like them? Something crossed my mind, and I blushed, lowering my voice. "I used to pretend around you." Nolan was startled. "What?" I plopped down onto a riverside bench resignedly. "Actually, every vacation I told you I was off to overseas camps. Truth is, I was going to do charity in the mountains with my parents. My folks came from the mountains. After reaching success, they wanted to give back. They were afraid I'd grow up spoiled, so they took me along to remember the hardships. I really bonded with the kids there, climbing trees and fishing like a wild child. Enough of that, I loved snacks from the village shops like spicy strips and bubble gum, the kind with sticker prizes." As I reminisced, my eyes shone. Nolan watched me intently, a tender look in his eyes. "No need to hide that from me." A slight awkwardness crossed my face. "You're the rich kid. I was afraid you'd think I was small-minded, a country bumpkin. I do have my pride. And your stomach wasn't the best. Watching you eat meant I had to set an example, didn't it?" Nolan's chuckle died down abruptly. He gazed deeply at me, a complex blend of emotions in his eyes. Just before he could speak, I let out a relieved sigh, smiling brightly. "But we're just friends now. I can share things I couldn't say before." The setting sun cast golden shards over the river, an extraordinarily spectacular sight. I stood up with a slight smile. Time to head back. Nolan drove, and I sat quietly in the passenger seat. Neither of us spoke. The quiet and dim environment invited relaxation. But for someone with a burden, it was quite the opposite. I turned slightly toward the window, using the reflection to catch a glimpse of Nolan's expression. Frowning, restless, I patiently waited for him to speak. Sure enough, after a few moments he hesitated. "Back then you saved me." His voice faded, unsure how to continue. I knew exactly what he wanted to ask. Back when Nolan was in middle school, he got into some trouble for hurting someone, and was sent back to his hometown for the summer. His family was strict, and when a youngster messed up, they had to kneel in the ancestral hall to reflect on their actions. Around the same time, my parents and I were doing some charity work in the area. It rained for 3 days straight, causing a landslide that flooded his family's ancestral hall. I would often wander around that area, hoping to bump into Nolan, and happened to witness this natural disaster. I immediately called for help and joined the rescue team, digging through the mud to find Nolan. When we finally got to him, he weakly opened his eyes, meeting my equally disheveled face. "Thank goodness, Nolan, you're okay." From that moment he began to accept me. Afterward, his family stopped pressuring my dad, and they suggested a match between Nolan and me. Our family quickly grew to a similar status as theirs. Everyone thought the union of our families was a done deal. But then Lily came into the picture. I caught them in a moment of intimacy and was furious, blurting out, "Lily approached you on purpose." Nolan looked at me coldly and pointedly replied, "Didn't you save me with an ulterior motive?" I glanced at Lily, who averted her eyes, while Nolan took her into his arms and left. It became clear that only those close to me would believe me. Not long after, Nolan called off our engagement, determined to be with Lily. It seemed that incident had always been a thorn in Nolan's side, and now it was time to remove it. I turned my head to look at Nolan, feeling a pang of sadness. "Of course, I approached you on purpose," I confessed. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. "Because I like you." He abruptly stopped the car by the side of the road. Nolan turned to look at me, and a tear rolled down my cheek. "I know the person you hurt was a bully. You've always been someone with a strong sense of justice. And that's what I admire about you. I was happy when I ran into you during that charity trip with my parents. I felt like even fate was on my side. Suppressing my sobs, I forced a smile at him. Nolan's eyes reddened as he cautiously took my hand, pressing his forehead to it. I'm sorry, Clara. I didn't know. His warm tears fell into my palm, sending a tingling sensation through me. I slowly but firmly withdrew my hand, meeting his confused gaze with a gentle look. It's not easy finding someone you truly love. Cherish it well. Lily is important to you, so don't blame her. It's okay. She just loves you very much. Nolan's eyes filled with emotion and guilt. I'm not here to plead on her behalf. You don't need to suffer for this, he insisted. With a chuckle, I replied, no matter what, I had a great day today, so let's consider it your little apology. Nolan looked at me with a newfound tenderness. Everything was understood in silence. I glanced at the car that had been trailing us all day, a deeper smile curving my lips. When memories lose their uniqueness, when the pride and honesty is tainted, and when the heart grows pure again, what should one do? After returning from the rehabilitation center, I officially joined the company as a VP. Truth is, during those 3 years abroad, I was gaining experience in our overseas branch, reviving near-bankrupt subsidiaries and managing profitable projects. The company veterans acknowledged my skills and competence. My dad humbly said I needed a few more years of experience, but he already had his retirement fishing gear ready. While taking over the workload, I asked Linda to update me on Nolan and Lily. It seemed their once solid relationship had hit a rough patch. They'd part ways after arguments, and Lily rarely appeared at friends' gatherings anymore. Nolan wasn't even staying at their apartment, preferring his family's villa. Lily's parents were troubling Nolan's mother, demanding a hefty bride price and houses and cars for Lily's brother. My mom mentioned Nolan's mother couldn't face her posh friends for tea, while Nolan's father, after a lifetime of dignity, almost disowned Nolan, outraged at Lily's behavior. As Lily's face drained of color, hoping for Nolan to defend her, she was shocked and devastated when he stayed silent, his face icy. My dad, calmly rolling his prayer beads, remarked, the household's a real mess now, what a disaster. My mom sighed over her tea. Seems Lily can't escape her family's issues, so pitiful. I chuckled, come on, wipe off those smug looks. The three of us exchanged knowing glances and shared a smile. I recalled the day we returned home, gathering in the study for a meeting. My father, idly turning his teacup, pondered, first step, progress by retreating. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. 3 years is enough to erase unpleasant memories, making him long for your goodness. Shared experiences create unreplaceable bonds. A song or setting can bring back your face, no matter their love. My mother adjusted her jade earrings, speaking slowly, second step, offer what others can't. Roadside snacks aren't just for damsels and princes. What's that saying? After fine dining, they might mistake slop for gourmet. Novelty in food and people alike. When Nolan realizes you'll join him for both feasts and simple soups, why settle for mere scraps? The third step, she continued, is the classic and effective playing hard to get. You gotta make him feel the pressure and make a final choice. When Nolan finally got a chance to ask me out, I'd just finished a blind date. As soon as I walked into the cafe, I leaned back like I had no will to live, looking totally defeated. My parents have gone nuts. They're dead set on me getting married by the end of this year. Nolan's smile was starting to look a bit forced. Why the rush? They're about to retire and want grandkids. I suddenly thought of something and moved closer to Nolan. Or else. His Adam's apple bobbed, and his hands quietly clenched on his knees. Do you have any handsome, decent friends? Could you set me up with someone? Nolan's tense face went blank for a moment, then he frowned. Is that really what you're asking? He sounded like he was gritting his teeth. I opened my hands, sounding resigned. Can't help it. Blind dates waste too much time, and none of them click. Nolan inexplicably breathed a sigh of relief. But when he looked up, he found I was watching him. I dragged out my tone casually. What did you think I was gonna say? Nolan gave up, cleared his throat, looked away as a blush crept to his ears. Nothing. I smirked and gave him a gentle reminder. Your phone screen's been lit up in your coat pocket for a while now. Is Lily calling you? Maybe you should go back. Mentioning Lily, Nolan's smile visibly faded. He picked up the phone and hung up, looking indifferent. Just a spam call. I smiled softly, my voice gentle. Spam calls just keep coming, huh? I know you guys had some issues lately. It's not Lily's fault for her family. You shouldn't be mad at her for that. Whatever it is, can't you just talk it out? Lily's always been sensitive and insecure. If you don't communicate well, she'll misunderstand. As I said that, I felt a bit down. Back in high school, there was this really tough math paper. I took ages on it, and then thought I'd see if there was anything to help Lily and Linda. Maybe my attitude seemed a bit superior. Anyway, Lily suddenly started crying and ran off. I've been wondering if I said something wrong to make her dislike me like that. Nolan listened, frowns and all, deep in thought, his expression growing darker. His tone was icy. You didn't do anything wrong. We made sure she had what she needed to join us at the same school. And you even spent time teaching her. She's just got thin skin, and a high opinion of herself, thinking everyone looks down on her. If she's got the nerve, she should decline the help and stand on her own 2 feet. Who is she trying to impress with this attitude? My eyebrows raised slightly. That comment packed a punch. Clearly, he was recalling that old memory. Back then, Lily saw Nolan at the door and thought I was mocking her for being dumb in front of him. She was upset because her crush was there, and her pride was hurt, so she ran to the garden to cry in secret. In the bright sunshine, butterflies flitted about. Teens stared at each other from a distance. I stood on the second floor, quietly admiring this beautiful scene. This was the start of their intertwined fate. Linda timely texted me, "Lily's gone." I curved my lips into a slight smile. To destroy something, first drive it mad. When you hear your chosen love saying that about you, will you cut ties and leave? Or cling even tighter to that lifeline and driftwood? I was curious. A few days later, news spread about Lily being pregnant and Nolan's family planning their engagement. It all went so smoothly because Lily's family played nice, apologized, and said sweet things. Nolan's family reluctantly let it slide. Either someone tipped them off, or they got smarter. After causing a scene and getting nowhere, they switched tactics. They played on emotions, saying a real family supports each other and stuff. Isolated and wronged, Lily felt the warmth of family she hadn't felt for ages. My dad was feeding the koi in the pond. Without even lifting his head, he asked. She forgave the family that once tried to sell her to a grumpy old man? Not only did they make up, but she also set them up in City A, playing the part of a loving family. Mom snorted, her eyes flicking with sarcasm. The old saying's true. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. After all, blood is thicker than water. Years apart dulls the sharp edges of grudges. Especially when you're wronged by outsiders, your mind naturally remembers the good things about family. Under our protection, she'd forgotten just how low her family would go for their own gain. I hit ignore on Nolan's incoming call. My face relaxed, calm and easy. Soon my birthday party rolled around. My first big splash since officially joining the company. A huge party to build connections and spark collaborations was only fitting. On this day, Nolan and Lily came too. Arm in arm. They looked like a picture-perfect couple. I raised my glass to them from afar, then went on to mingle with other guests. Amidst all the finery and clinking glasses, dressed simply yet elegantly in a white gown, I chatted easily with the CEOs. Wherever I went, I felt Nolan's eyes on me, the presence unmistakable. I glanced back, giving a small smile. Nolan's eyes lit up instantly, and he subconsciously walked my way. Lily was still stuck with a stiff smile, not yet realizing she'd been pulled forward a step. Bumped right into a waiter holding a tray. Gasps drew the guest's attention. Glasses shattered, scattering wine all over Lily's pink mermaid dress. For a moment, Lily stood there, frozen and embarrassed. Everyone knew Nolan, so they made faces seeing Lily in this state. Soft voices exchanged low remarks. What an embarrassment, some murmured. Lily's face turned red and white, trembling and biting her lip. Nolan's expression soured, and he didn't even glance at her. Seeing the drama unfold, I stepped in to smooth things over. With composed grace, I offered to take Lily upstairs for a change of clothes. The guests looked at me more appreciatively. Nolan's strained expression relaxed. his eyes mixed with guilt and helplessness, but his gaze on me was fiery. Clara, sorry for ruining your birthday party vibe. He didn't notice that Lily next to him was biting her lip hard, her eyes red. I shook my head. It's just a small thing. He wanted to say more, but I turned and left with Lily. In the dressing room, Lily suddenly looked up at me. Seeing me like this, you must be pretty proud, huh? I looked at her amused. What are you talking about? Lily sneered. Your high and mighty attitude is sickening. Don't think I don't know you do it on purpose. You just happen to be born into wealth. And besides throwing your weight around, what else do you know? Aren't you ashamed? I sighed. Your weakness doesn't make you right. My parents came from nothing, and their success came through their own hard work. As their child, I inherit and strive to expand what they built. Why should I feel shame? But you could become a winner in life through your own efforts. Why throw it all away for a guy? This is the part one don't get. We met Lily during a charity event in a rural village. She was just 13, being dragged by her dad and an old bachelor. The despair and unwillingness in her eyes were overwhelming. We called the police, and she cried, begging us to take her away. She didn't want to waste her life in that village, where everything was predictable. Linda was in a similar situation, but she had a clear goal, and her determination was striking. She said, knowledge changes fate. I want to study and carve out a life for myself. I sponsored them both. With Lily it was sympathy. With Linda, it was being moved. But I never interfered with their choices or thoughts. Years later, they made very different choices for their futures. Lily clenched her fists, her expression extremely angry, tears welling up in her eyes. I hate your holier-than-thou tone. Like choosing love as some mortal sin. Nolan is the only one who's kind to me. He's my salvation. Is it wrong to like him? Just because you sponsored me, do I have to follow your orders? Yes, I took your fiancé. Didn't know, did you? Nolan and I both hate your confident attitude. Your sponsorship is just charity and hypocrisy, which is disgusting. I laughed. Paying for your education, giving you the best resources, and spending time teaching you. You call that commanding? Did you ever ask if I wanted it? Then why didn't you refuse the sponsorship? For a moment, her face showed even more anger, and there was resentment in her eyes. You take advantage of the fact that I rely on you to stop me from being with Nolan, or even approaching him. Isn't that manipulation? Of course not. In fact, your relationship was secretly pushed by me. I just smirked. I don't get it. Why is kind treatment from Nolan your salvation? But from me, it's high-handed charity. Lily was stunned for a second, and then embarrassed, biting her lip. He treats me sincerely, but you just use me to show off your kindness and shine. I interrupted her, my mood turning utterly sad. Mumbling. So that's how you see it. The next second I fainted. Lily froze, her mind blank with panic. At the same time, the door burst open. Clara. That was Nolan, shouting urgently. The boss is having a depressive episode from stress. That's Linda's voice. Lots of frantic footsteps followed. Nolan scooped me up, coldly questioning Lily. What did you say to Clara again? I didn't. Linda. I vaguely heard phrases like taking fiancé, revenge, charity. Lily's voice turned piercing. How can you believe Linda? She's sponsored by Clara and works for her. Of course she sides with her. As soon as she stopped talking, everyone fell silent. Linda sneered. You benefited from the boss too. Then why did you take her fiancé and slander her online? Cue an uproar. Blame and disdain swarmed towards Lily. She faced the judgment of everyone. I heard my dad's angry voice. Nolan, what's the meaning of indulging your fiancé's slander against my daughter? You think our family is easy to push around. Nolan tightened his grip on me, but didn't put me down. He spoke apologetically. Sorry, sir. When Clara wakes, I'll apologize. As for Lily, our engagement is off. I'll clarify everything online. We owe you a proper explanation. With a thud, Lily fell to the ground dazed. She clutched Nolan's sleeve, voice trembling with fear. I'm sorry, Nolan. I'll apologize to her. What about our child? Nolan's voice turned cold. Get rid of it. With that, he carried me out without looking back. Linda followed, driving me to that familiar private nursing home. While unconscious, I kept thinking about my conversation with Lily. What counts as true intentions, What counts as false? I recalled an online post. A sponsored girl planned to marry and become a full-time housewife after graduating. She felt conflicted. Marriage is essentially a collaboration. For it to last, you must be equals. To secure love, first secure a livelihood. Despite so many cautionary tales. Why do people charge ahead without heeding the warning signs? Now I understand. It's not just choosing love, but seeking a shortcut to jump social classes. My family and I walked countless mountain paths, long winding roads, feeling like the end was nowhere near. That's why there are shortcuts. Although they shorten the distance, they're steep, full of thorns, and you might slip and fall if you're not careful. Every word from Lily dripped with envy, hating me for being born into privilege, hating that I refused to settle for mediocrity. She felt superior by stealing Nolan, proving she had finally beaten me. She even convinced herself she was the righteous one. To her, Nolan wasn't just a lifeline, but her only trophy. If she lost him, she felt she'd truly have nothing. Lily chose the rocky path and had to deal with the risks. Whether she emerged unscathed or in pieces wasn't up to anyone. I woke up confused, seeing Nolan by my bedside. His eyes were bright, the joy softening his tired look. "Clara, you're awake." "Nolan, what's up with you being here?" He took my hand, holding it to his cheek, and raspily said, "Clara, I regret it. Can you forgive me?" Slowly, I pulled my hand away, looking out the window, unable to stop my eyes from welling up. "It's not about forgiveness, we're done. You're about to marry Lily." Nolan quickly replied, "I won't marry her. I finally see her true colors. She led me to misunderstand you, and is now spreading lies online out of jealousy. How did she repay your kindness?" It was like the fable of the farmer and the snake. I refused to spend my life with someone like that. You know me, we belong together. I stayed silent, eyes closed as a tear escaped, feeling both wronged and saddened. If he hadn't given Lily the opportunity, how could she have succeeded? A man in love would fetch stars for you. But when it fades, he uses the harshest words as if he bears no blame. Nolan failed to see my sarcastic smirk, mistaking it for anguish, hope fleetingly crossing his face. He spoke softer, "Clara, let's stay here for a while, all right? Don't worry, I'll be right here." He turned off his buzzing phone, seemed relieved, treating this like a haven. Long after, I gave him a small smile like glimmering. Okay. What Nolan didn't know was the storm brewing outside while he hid away. My dad teamed up with leading companies to target his business hard, exposing shocking scandals, tax evasion, site accidents, unethical competition. Nolan's family built their real estate empire unethically, but his powerful dad kept things hushed. But who was my dad? A renowned philanthropist. He supported many desperate souls, and some naturally wanted to get back with evidence. While Nolan's company struggled, my dad comfortably profited, ready to enjoy the holidays. When Linda smilingly called me home, I was making snowmen with Nolan. During this time, he was more relaxed than ever, never running out of things to say, gently shielding me from the cold, hands red from the chill, handing me 2 small rocks for the snowman's eyes. I smiled at him, but didn't take them. Nolan was puzzled. "What's wrong?" In the next moment, I kicked the snowman's head off, grinning wickedly. "Sorry, game over." Nolan stood there, lips quivering slightly. "Clara?" I adjusted my coat and walked away, leaving behind my unburdened figure and Linda's knowing eyes. "From now on, call me boss. Even a sinking ship has thousands of nails." Despite his company's harsh setbacks, it's still a giant that won't easily collapse. My dad, ever composed, said, "Ripping such a big chunk is enough. It'll pose no more threat to us." Besides, our goals met. John's finished. John, Nolan's father, sabotaged my dad's early business efforts, embarrassingly belittling him in front of executives. When my mom was insultingly compared like merchandise, it became personal. The grudge was formed then. From rescuing Nolan, everything was planned meticulously. My family believes in reciprocating goodwill and retaliation. Dad always taught, if you repay evil with good, what do you owe to good? A friendly feng shui expert once said that if someone wrongs you, they essentially steal your luck. Avenging yourself is reclaiming your fate. If you always swallow your pride, your luck fades, allowing anyone to step over you. I'm not one to forgive and forget. My mom's elegant face was all smiles. Yeah, we actually have Lily to thank. I nodded, smiling. If not for Nolan's bold engagement end for her 3 years ago, we couldn't openly sever ties. Coupled with her escalating rumors, once her parents learned about Nolan's refusal due to me, they panicked. A spiritual tip led them to tearfully stream online, accusing me of stealing their daughter's fiancé. The events fueled public outrage. Nolan's truth-telling cleared me, exposing how I'd supported Lily. Friends vouched for me, and as netizens dug into my online footprint, they found endless charity records, swiftly flipping public opinion in our favor. Our stock prices soared, while Lily's family faced harsh backlash. Especially Lily, who was straight up declared socially dead. I ran into Nolan and Lily again at a business gala. Nolan and John had been kicked off the board. Nolan was totally abandoned. Due to various interests, there was no chance of him resurfacing. He's got absolutely nothing left. Today, he begged a former friend for an invite to come see me. After some time apart, Nolan no longer had his old flair and energy. He looked worn out, with an aura of defeat surrounding him. He stared hard at me, his eyes red. "You've been lying to me this whole time." I shook my head. "When I said I liked you, that was genuine." His expression froze, and his pale lips moved slightly. Initially, I did approach him with interest in mind, but the longer I looked at him, my heart stopped being ruled by my head, until his attention started to shift towards Lily. Betrayed by 2 people I was close to, I woke up like from a dream, sat alone through the night, then cut my losses and went with the flow. "Clara." Tears welled up in Nolan's eyes, and he instinctively reached for my hand. I sidestepped with a smile, looking at Lily behind him, her face full of resentment. People shouldn't be too greedy. Lily wasn't pretending anymore, shaking with anger. "It was all part of your plan, wasn't it? Clara, you'll get what's coming to you." I looked at her quietly. "Yeah, maybe saving you in the first place sealed my fate. There's a saying, helping a grateful person creates good karma. But help a bad person out of a jam, and the consequences fall back on you. I get it now." Lily froze for a moment when she heard this. I dropped the smile and leaned in. Just like a mother can't accept her child turning into a knife aimed at her, I can't take my kindness being fed to a backstabbing wolf. Say I'm fake, say I'm lofty, but I saved you, that's the truth. I supported you, that's also the truth. And since you're ungrateful, why should I let you go? I pat her rigid shoulder, and she broke out in goosebumps instantly. She seemed finally afraid, her trembling eyes slowly filling with tears. In the next moment, I was smiling again without a care. "All right then, take your prize and go earn some formula money. Be sure to stick together for 100 years, till death do you part." After Nolan lost his power, people lined up to kick him while he was down. He and Lily became the hot topic at recent parties. Nolan seemed like a changed man, drinking every day. Surprisingly enough, he still married Lily. Everyone was shocked, wondering if this was true love or what. I just smiled without saying a word. Back then, Lily's family caused such a scene, even dragged Nolan's family name through the mud. So why would they agree to Nolan getting engaged to her? Linda went digging around for the truth. Turns out, Nolan has male infertility issues. So this might just be his only child. How could they not keep it? But they didn't know. This child might not be Nolan's. Knowing Nolan's mom and Nolan hated her guts, Lily was sure they'd torment her every way they could. She wanted to abort the child and leave with her family. But Lily's family tied her up and sold her off to Nolan and his mom. A second time she was thrown back into the pit. Sadly, this time, no one's coming to save her. I mused nonchalantly. Would this count as a different kind of karma? Linda stayed quiet for a bit, a hint of wistfulness on her face. That was her own choice. The phone rang, and my expression softened. "Linda, Mom and Dad called us back for dinner. Dad caught a big fish." Linda's cool face warmed up, like the snow on a mountain melting away. "Sure." The end.